We're going to begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuv Dalet, 8 lines down from the top of the Yamud, where it says Lo Yitain, Lo Livnoi, V'lo L'Shluchai. This is going back to what it said in the Mishnah, when a person is a Gazlan, and then he swore falsely about this, that he doesn't have the money, and then later he admitted it. So then you have to pay the keren, the principal, then a chaimish, a fifth as well, and then a karbonosham. So the Mishnah said that the only time you can have your kapara is if you send the actual keren itself directly to the owner. Not send, you bring it, you pay it directly to the owner. And the Mishnah actually said, and here this is the words the Gemara quotes, you can't pay this not by giving it to the son of the nigzal, or not even giving it to his shliach that he sent. You have to give it to him himself. Okay, so in connection to this, the Gemara here brings a machlekes. Itmar, we learned the following machlekes. Shliach she'aseh be'edim. A person that has a pekodon and a deposit that he gave someone and he wants to pick it up, and he can't go pick it up himself. So he has a shliach that in front of edim, he appoints this shliach. Rav Chisda says, have a shliach. This, he becomes your shliach. And the relevance of the fact that he becomes your shliach is, the owner of this deposit, is that now, as soon as this shomer gives over to this shliach this item, so that's it, it's out of his possession, now it's your shliach, and if any einus happens along the way, the shomer will not be responsible for this, because it's your shliach. Rav Chisda says, sorry, that was Rav Chisda. Rabba says, lo yav shliach. No, he's not considered to be your shliach. When the shomer gives it to this shliach to deliver to you, the shomer is still going to be responsible for anything that happens with this object along the way until it comes back to the owner. It's still he's a shliach, he's delivering it, but it's still the shomer's responsibility. So the Gemara explains, what is this based on? Rav Chisda says, have a shliach, that he's considered the shliach of the owner that appointed him, and the reason is because this is why, or tarach, this is why this person went out of his way, that he brought edim when he appointed this shliach to go and pick up this pekodin, the leiku b'rishosei. So it should be clear that edim should see that I appointed him, the owner of this object appointed him, and therefore it's clear that it's his shliach. So as soon as he picks it up, it's in his rishus. Why is the owner of this pekodin interested that it should be this way? Because otherwise he knows that the shomer is not going to want to give the pekodin to return to him. Because the shomer is going to be afraid, if I'm giving this pekodin to this shliach and it's still my responsibility, why should I rely on the shliach? So therefore he put edim there that it should be clear that it's my shliach. But Rabba says, no, lo yav shliach. This person is not, when the pekodin will come into his possession, it's not like it came into your possession. It's not your shliach to that extent. Why did he put edim there that it should be clear that you appointed the shliach? Hachi Kama. This is when he had edim that were present there. All this was what he was doing by this was inish mehemnahu. He wanted that edim should be there so that the shomer should know that I appointed them and I trust them. Isamchis smoich. Now, if you trust them as well, you can follow me, just like I trust them. If you trust them as well, then give it to the shliach to deliver to me. But he didn't mean to say that I'm making them my shliach to the extent that when it's in the shliach's hands, it's already like in the owner's hand, that now it's not going to be the shomer's responsibility. It's still the shomer's responsibility. The edim, though, are there so that the shomer can ask the edim about this, and the edim will say, oh yeah, we see that the owner trusts them, so you can probably also trust them. Trust the shliach, that is, to send it back. Now the Rishonim explain, based on the Gemara in Bava Metzia, the Gemara is going to quote from Bava Metzia, if it's a situation where the Bala Mois, the owner here, appoints this shliach, and he says clearly that you are my shliach to pick it up, and when it's in your possession, it's like already mine. If he spelled that out clearly, then the Gemara wouldn't bring any machlekes about this. But over here the case is, he didn't spell that out clearly. He's appointing the shliach, go pick up this thing, in front of Adam. So in such a case, it's not clear what he meant by this kind of a shlichus. Did he mean to say that as soon as it comes into their hand, it's like in his hand already? Or no, all he's doing is he's saying to the shomer, here, you have a shliach available to deliver it to me, but it's on your risk. You can take, you're going to have to take the responsibility for it. I'm just telling you, I trust them, so you can trust them too, but it's still all on your responsibility. It's not my shliach. That's the machlekes here. Okay, so the Gemara here brings from a Mishnah in Bava Metzia. Tanan, the Mishnah says, Ashayel es apara. A person is borrowing a cow, and the lender sends this cow to the person that's borrowing it in the hands of his son, his servant, or his shliach. Or the shoyel himself, the borrower himself, sent his son or his servant or his shliach to go and pick up this cow that he's borrowing. And it died along the way, potter. The shoyel, the borrower, is going to be potter for the fact that it died. Now, of course, usually the halacha by a shoyel is that whatever einus happens to whatever he borrowed, he's responsible for it. Over here, this Mishnah is saying, even though this cow was already in the possession of a shliach that he sent to pick up this cow, but nevertheless, it's not yet in his possession and he's going to be potter. So the Gemara explains, Hai shluchai heichidami. When it says here that the borrower, there is a shliach, sent a shliach to pick up this cow, what's the case here? If there are no edim that he appointed this shliach, so how do we even know to prove that this is his shliach? Why does it have to say he's potter? The person could just come and say, I never appointed him as my shliach. Ella the asabeidim. Obviously, the case over here is we have witnesses. We know for a fact that the borrower appointed this shliach, the katani de potter, and nevertheless, what does it say here? That the shoyel is potter. So the Gemara kashil Rav Chisda. So this is a question of Chisda. Rav Chisda says that the moment you appoint a shliach in front of Eidim, that itself proves that you want that shliach, whatever comes into his possession for you, to be already like it's in your possession. So here as well, if the shoyel appointed a shliach to pick up this cow, it's already like in the shoyel's possession. So you should be responsible for an einus that happened. Why does it say you potter? Answers the Gemara, Kedamar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda answered regarding another question that the Gemara is going to bring right after this from our Mishnah, that it's not talking about a regular kind of shliach. Even though there in the Mishnah it says the term shliach, it's not a shliach that you befedish appointed to go on and pick up this cow. B'schira ilakitay. It's talking about someone that you have hired, someone that works for you, or lakita. Lakita means either someone that lives with you, or someone that is also a kind of a worker for you. What again? Companion, friend. Okay, someone that works for you, and he's going and picking it up for you, but you didn't befedish appoint him in front of Adam. So just like Rav Chisda gives this answer regarding the next question the Gemara has over here as well, you didn't directly and clearly appoint him. It's someone that works for you and he knows that you want to have this para, and he goes to get it for you. So because you didn't directly appoint him, so therefore when it's in this person's possession, it's not yours yet. You don't have the responsibility and you'll be potter. But if you befedish appointed him in front of Eidim, then Rav Chisda says that it is already like in your possession. Now, Tanan, what did it say in our Mishnah? When a Gazlan has to pay back what he stole, and the case that the Mishnah spoke about when the person denied it, and now he wants to pay back. So it says, you can't give it not to the person's son and not to his shliach. So no, why not? Why can't you give it to his shliach? The shliach that the nigzal, the owner, that's sending a shliach to pick up the money that you want to return to him. What kind of a shliach are we talking about? If this is a shliach that was not appointed in the presence of Eidim, so then you know Yedinin. How do we know that he's a shliach of the nigzal, of the owner of this money that you stole? The case over here is that he was appointed with Eidim. And what does it say in our Mishnah? That when you're returning this money, you can't return it to his shliach. Why can't you return it to his shliach? And if he appointed him in front of Eidim, according to Rav Chisda, he's like the person himself, and as soon as you give the money to the shliach, it's like you gave it to the person himself, to the nigzal himself. So that should be properly returned, and now you can have your kapara. And says the Gemara, Tegem Rav Chisda. So here's where Rav Chisda said, the same shot we said before, B'schirai ulekitai. It's not someone that you befedish appointed in front of Eidim, but it's your worker that just went to, the worker of this nigzal that went to pick up the money. But he wasn't a fedish appointed in front of Eidim, so therefore it's not going to be like you paid it back directly to the owner. Says the Gemara, but so that means, according to Rav Chisda, but if it was a shliach that the nigzal befedish appointed in front of Eidim, so what would be the halacha? Are you going to say that then he is actually a proper shliach of the nigzal, and as soon as you give back the money to the shliach, so then you're done. You don't have to give it directly back to the person himself. If so, Adatani Seifer, why does it say afterwards in the Mishnah? That there is an exception. There is a case where you don't have to give the money directly back to the nigzal, to the owner himself. The Mishnah's exception is Avol Noisenu l'shliach bezdin. If you give it to a shliach bezdin, a representative of bezdin, so then the bezdin holds it for this person. Why does it have to say dafka, a case of a bezdin? Lifloig v'lisni bididei. The Mishnah can make a distinction even regarding a shliach himself. When you give it to a shliach, here the Bach adds in over here a few words to make the Gemara clearer. The Bach adds in, Bamed, the Mishnah could read as follows. When do I say that if it's given to a shliach, it's not like you gave it to the person himself? When it was stam, a worker of the nigzal that's coming to pick it up, but he wasn't appointed directly from the nigzal for this. Aval, going back into the Gemara, but if it was a shliach that the nigzal himself actually appointed with edim, so then he is a proper shliach, and you can pay back the shliach. The Mishnah should make this distinction even without bringing up the case of bezdin. Amri, so the answer to this, loy psikale. The reason why it doesn't bring up this distinction regarding a shliach is because that's something which is not always defined. It's not always clear. Because if you want to send the money back to the nigzal with a shliach, it will depend who appointed this person as a shliach. The nigzal or the gazlan. Did you appoint a shliach to deliver it? Or did the nigzal appoint a shliach to pick it up? Over there will be a difference. But shliach bezdin, so therefore it brings up the case of shliach bezdin because over there it makes no difference. Loishna ase nigzal, v'loishna ase gazlan. This representative of the bezdin that's going to hold on to the money for the owner, it doesn't make a difference if the owner, the nigzal, appointed the shliach bezdin, or if the gazlan himself appoints a shliach bezdin to hold on to the money. Have a shliach. That's a shliach that could hold on to the money for the nigzal, and now you can have your kapara. So psikale, that's something which is clear. Therefore, the Mishnah brings up this case of shliach bezdin, where there's no distinction who appointed the shliach bezdin. But shliach shall say be'edim. But if it's a shliach that was appointed by edim, so over here there's a difference. If it's the nigzal that appointed the shliach to pick it up from you, so then as soon as you give it to the shliach, it's like it's already in the possession of the nigzal, and you can have your kapara. Asay gazlin lo yav shliach. But if the gazlan appointed this shliach, then no, you're not yetzi yet with returning it to the owner, because he's not the representative of the owner himself. He's just the gazlan shliach. So leipsikale, this is undefined. So therefore, when the Mishnah wants to make a distinction and it wants to say that there is a case of a shliach where if you give it to that shliach, it's like you returned it to the owner himself, it brings a case of a shliach bezdin where no matter what, the shliach bezdin doesn't make a difference who appointed him. Now, the Gemara says, based on this pshat, according to Rav Chisda here in the Mishnah, ulafuke mahai tane. When our Mishnah says the halacha of the shliach bezdin, and it doesn't make a difference who appointed the shliach bezdin, but this excludes another opinion of the following tane here that holds that even by a shliach bezdin, it does make a difference who appointed the shliach bezdin. Because the Tanya in Abraisa we learned, Rab Shimon ben Elazar said, shliach bezdin she'osei nigzal, v'lo yasei gazlin, that a shliach bezdin, and it has to be a shliach bezdin that the nigzal appointed, and not that the gazlin appointed. Or even if it would be a shliach bezdin, or yasei gazlin, the gazlin appointed, v'shalach halo v'nota l'shaloi miyadei. But the nigzal then appointed his shliach to go and get it from this shliach bezdin. Then you're going to be potter. Then you return it properly already to the owner. So you see over here that Rab Shimon ben Elazar holds that even regarding a shliach bezdin, it has to be appointed by the nigzal himself. The Gemara comes back to the original machlokes regarding a shliach that a person appoints in front of edim, whether now that shliach is mamish like your representative, that as soon as the pekodin comes into the hands of the shliach, it's like you got it already, and the shomer is potter, or no, the fact that you appointed in front of edim just means you're telling the shomer that I trust these edim, or the shliach that is, and you can send it with the shliach, but it's not like it's already in my possession. It's still going to be your responsibility. That was the original machlokes between Rabbah and Rav Chisda. So the Gemara brings that other Amiram earlier argued about this as well. Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Elazar Damri Tarvayu, actually they both said a halacha about this. They didn't argue about this. Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Elazar both said, Shliach she'aseh be'edim, a shliach that you appointed in the presence of edim, have a shliach. It is your shliach. As soon as the shomer gives it to the shliach, it's already in your possession. It's not anymore the shomer's responsibility what happens with it. Now they asked the question that the Gemara asked before, Vim Toima Mishnah Seinu. It says in our Mishnah that if you send a payment of the gzela back to the nigzal, even if the nigzal sent the shliach is not the representative of the nigzal, that it's like returned already. It's still your responsibility. So the answer is either b'mamtzi le'shliach. Our Mishnah was not speaking about a case where the nigzal befedish appointed a shliach in front of Eidim. Rather, the nigzal made available for the gazlan somebody to deliver it back to him. What happened? The nigzal says to somebody, says to a friend of his, I have an item or money that this person stole from me that he has to pay me back. And he's not sending me the money back. And I'm not sure why not. Maybe it's because he doesn't have who to send the money to me. So if you're traveling to that place, be in his vicinity, go around of him. Maybe he can't find anybody to send it to me, and maybe he'll see that you're my friend and he'll send the money with you to me. That's the kind of shliach that our Mishnah was talking about. Not a shliach that you directly and clearly appointed in front of Eidim. It's just somebody that you gave him the message that be available over there to bring the money back to me. That's a kind of shliach that the gazlan is not going to be yaitza just by giving it back to him. He's not a real shliach of the nigzal. Hinami, or similar answer like we already said before, like Rav Chisda said that it's just a worker of yours that is going to get it without you befedish appointing him in front of Eidim, and therefore the gazlan is not yaitza with this. That's a different discussion. It's a machlokes actually. Rambam there is famous machlokes when you appoint the shliach, you have to have Eidim to appoint the shliach. But over here, the Gemara is asking a very specific shaila when you appoint the shliach to pick up a pekadon in front of Eidim. What's this? What's the significance of that? Does it mean that you meant to say that now whatever is in the hands of the shliach is already like in my hands and the shayim has no responsibility, or no? Just because you did it in front of Eidim and you appointed him, all you were saying to the shayim it is you were giving him a message. I trust him. So therefore you.
So over here without Eidim for sure it wouldn't work.
For sure not. Yeah, without Eidim for sure not.
Even though in other places in Torah it may work.
Yeah, in other cases in Torah, over there you don't have this shaila. Over here it's a shaila of what his intention was. It's bigger shaila what his intention was when he appointed the shliach in front of Eidim. Rav Yehuda said, the name of Shmuel, discussing a similar halacha regarding sending a shliach to pick up a pekadon for you. So he says, you don't send back money with a shliach that comes to pick up a pekadon, and he has a diyukni. A diyukni means he has a letter with a certain symbol, with a certain sign that the owner of the money sent him. But it doesn't mean, though, that this shliach, as soon as he's going to get this pekadon in his possession, that now the shaymer will not have responsibility. He's not a real shliach, mamish representing the mishaleach. Even if it has the signature of the owner of this pekadon, that he signs him a letter that I want him to go and pick it up, it doesn't matter. This shliach, when he gets this pekadon, it's still going to be the responsibility of the shaymer until it arrives back to the mishaleach. So therefore, if the shaymer doesn't trust this shliach, he shouldn't send this pekadon back with this shliach, because it's still going to be his responsibility. And that's even though the owner sent a sign and a signature that I want him to pick it up for me. It doesn't mean, though, just because the owner sent a sign and a signature, it doesn't mean that the owner was saying with that when it's going to be in the shliach's hands, it's not going to be your responsibility anymore. It's still going to be your responsibility. So therefore, if you're smart, if you don't want to have the risk of this person doing it, and it's still your responsibility, don't send it with him. Rav Yechanan says, if the shliach comes with a signature of Eidim that are signing on this, that the owner sent the shliach, then you could send it with the shliach, because now once you have Eidim that signed in it, if the owner went and brought Eidim to sign in it, why did he go out of his way to get Eidim to sign on this? Because he wants to be clear to the shaymer that it's not going to be your responsibility anymore if you send it with the shliach. So the signature is good enough. The signature shows that it's not going to be the shaymer's responsibility. So you can send it with the shliach, and that's it. You're potter, whatever happens afterwards. So Amri, the Gemara says, l'shmuel. According to Shmuel's opinion, samai tekanta. So if the owner of this pekadon wants to pick up his pekadon, and he sends a shliach, and even if he sends a sign that this is my shliach, or even if he gets signatures of Eidim on this, it still doesn't matter. It's still going to be the shaymer's responsibility. So my tekanta. So what could he do? In what way could the owner send the shliach that the shaymer should be confident that it's not going to be his responsibility anymore, and therefore he would send it? So the Rishonim over here have a discussion whether Shmuel agrees to what the Gemara, the opinion of Rabba and Rav Chisda before, the discussion before, because the Gemara seemingly could say, at least according to Rav Chisda, if you appoint befeirish Eidim, not just signatures of Eidim, but if there's Eidim that come and tell us that this Shliach was appointed in front of them, then according to Rav Chisda, then it's not the Shem's responsibility anymore. So that would be the takana. So when the Gemara here asks my takanta, the simple pshat would seem like that Shmuel held like Rabbah, that even if you have actual Eidim, it's also not good enough. We also say that it's still going to be the Shem's responsibility. So in what way could you send a Shliach that it will not be the Shem's responsibility once he gives it over to the Shliach? So Gemara says, Rab Abba, that is, it's like what happened here in the story of Rab Abba. Avamasik Zuzi b'Rav Yosef Bar Chama. He was collecting money for a halva or from a pekodin that he had that was by Rav Yosef Bar Chama. And Amalei Rav Safra, he tells Rav Safra that was traveling to that place where Rav Yosef was, Bahadidasis, I sin in LA. When you come back, so I want you to bring me back this pekodin that I have by Rav Yosef. So when Rav Safra went there to where Rav Yosef was, so Amalei Rava Berei, Rava, the son of Rav Yosef Bar Chama, encountered Rav Safra that came to pick up this pekodin for Rab Abba. And so his son tells him, Mikas of Locha Hiskabalti. Did Rab Abba clearly write for you that as soon as you're going to get this pekodin, that Rab Abba is saying that as soon as it's in the hands of the Shliach, it's as if I got it already. And it's not going to be the responsibility of Rav Yosef anymore for anything that happens with it. He has to write to you clearly these words, his kabalti. It's as if I got it. Did he write for you these words, his kabalti? No, he didn't write for me his kabalti. So over here we see this is following along with what Shmuel said. Even if Rab Abba would send Rav Safra and he would write him a sign that he wants him to pick it up, or he would sign Eidim that he wants him to pick it up, it's not good enough. It's not going to be in his possession already. It's still going to be responsibility of the Shomer, of Rav Yosef in this case, which was the Shomer. He has to have a document where it says, his kabalti. It's as if I got it already. So therefore he told him, Miyachi zil bereisha, go first back to Rab Abba, v'yichtev l'chal is kabalti, and let him write for you clearly that if you're picking this up, it's as if he already received it, and then you can come and get it. But then afterwards, Amalei, Rav, the son of Rav Yosef, told Rav Safra, even if Rab Abba is going to write to you that it's as if he received it already, as soon as it's in your hands, that's not good enough. Lav klumu. Why isn't it good enough? Because Rab Abba at that point was already older. And Dilma Ada Asa Shachav Rab Abba, until you come here, you're going to come back from Rab Abba with this document saying that it's as if Rab Abba received it already. But by the time you arrive here, maybe Rab Abba passed away already. And then V'naflo Zuzi Kama Yasmi, and then what happens? This money now is owned by the Yisayim, by the inheritors. And the fact that Rab Abba says that it's as if I received it already, it's worthless, because now it's owned by the Yisayim. So therefore, we still won't trust you to take it back to Rab Abba, because it's still going to be our responsibility. So it's not even good enough. So Amalei Velamai Takanta. So Rav Safra says, so then what should I do? How can I pick this up in such a way that you should be confident that once it's in my hands, it's not going to be your responsibility anymore? It's as if Rab Abba got it already. So he said, Zil, you go back to Rab Abba, and what you could do is as follows. Nikninu lucha agav ara. Let him sell you, give you the ownership of this money here that you're picking up with a kinyan agav. The kinyan of agav is that when you have a piece of land that you sell to someone, and along with that piece of land, you can sell along other metaltalin. Over here, this money or this pekodin that you're coming to pick up, so you should make a kinyan of agav, and that's how it becomes yours. So therefore, once it's yours, it's out of our possession. We give it to you. So that's it. So it's not going to be our responsibility anymore. We'll be ready to give it to you to go deliver to Rab Abba. That's the only way. And v'sa'at, and then you have to come back. And the cost of loan is kabalti. And then you, Rav Safra, which is the one picking it up, you will give us a document. His kabalti, I got it. And that's it. And then it's not going to be our responsibility. That's the only eitzah. You have to have this kinyan agav. The Shainim over here discussed that this kinyan agav seemingly only works when you have a pekodin, because the pekodin is already a chayfetz that's here by Olam, that you can make a kinyan agav the karka. But the halva, milva, it's money that's not even in your possession yet. It's money that the leiva has. How could you make a kinyan agav that's on the money that's not even yours yet, b'chlal? So that's a problem. The only way you can understand this Gemara is if it's talking about a pekadon. And the Gemara brings another example where this was done. Kihad, Rav Papa. In case a similar story was also with Rav Papa. Have a masik Treser Alfa Zuzi Bei Chuzoi. He was trying to collect 12,000 zuz from people in Chuzoi, and he had someone that was going there, and he wanted him to be able to collect it. That the people should have the confidence to give it to him, that once they give it to him, it won't be their responsibility anymore. So what did he do? So he sold the rights of what he was picking up to Rav Shmuel bar Abba that was going there, Agav Asifra de Beisei, with a kinyan of Agav of the threshold of his house. He says, I'm selling you this area over here of my house, and Agav, this piece of land that I'm selling you, you also have the ownership of this that you're going to pick up. And like this, he was able to pick it up, and the people that gave it to him knew that it's not going to be their responsibility anymore. And then Kiyasa, when Rav Shmuel bar Abba was coming back, delivering back the money that he brought for him, Nafak la'pei Tuach. He went out to greet him until this place called Tovach. He was so happy that finally he was able to arrange to get his money delivered back to him, and he went and he greeted him. Okay. Going back now to the Mishnah said, Nasan lo yasakeren v'chulu, that when a person pays the keren, if he did not, so then the Mishnah says, even though you paid already the keren directly to the owner, and you did not pay the chaimish to the owner, but yet, as soon as you pay the keren directly to the owner, so then you could have your kapara and bring a carbon, you give the chaimish, you don't have to give the chaimish directly to the owner, and you can bring your carbon. Says the Gemara, Alma, what I see from this Mishnah is, chaimish mamainahu, that the payment of the chaimish has a status of a payment of money. It's not just a payment like a knas, which you have to pay, but it's mamish like a payment of money where the person you're paying it to has a right to demand from you to pay it to him. It's his money. Just like the keren, the principal that you're paying back. You stole from him, and it's his money, and he's demanding, give me my money. Chaimish has the exact same status. How do you see this from this Mishnah? So Rashi says, from the fact that the Mishnah has to come and specify and clarify that giving the keren is enough, but you don't have to give him the chaimish directly, that's a raya that the chaimish really does have the same status of a money that he has a right to collect from you, like the keren itself. And nevertheless, the Mishnah says, once you pay the keren, we learn from the pasuk that just giving the keren itself, you have to give it to him himself, that's enough, and even if you didn't give him the chaimish, you could already have the kapara. Okay, that's one raya from our Mishnah. What's the relevance from this? The relevance of this is if this person, the nigzal, dies, that not only the gazlan himself has to pay it, but even the yarshim of the gazlan also have the responsibility to pay this. Yeah, the Gemara is soon going to talk about the case of the nigzal. Okay, I ran ahead of myself. Over here, it's talking about the case where the gazlan died. Another raya to this is, we learned in the Mishnah, a person paid the keren already, and the chaimish he didn't pay yet, but he swore falsely regarding the chaimish that I don't owe you the chaimish. And then afterwards he comes and he admits that he owes the chaimish, and he wants to do tshuv and he wants to pay that chaimish. So now harei meisav chaimish al chaimish, he has to pay back that fifth that he denied, and he has to pay an additional chaimish on that chaimish which he just denied. Alma, so again I see this point, Chumshe Memaina, that this chaimish itself has a status of money that you owed him. If this chaimish were stam a knas, and you denied that, you wouldn't pay a chaimish on the chaimish. You only pay a chaimish on stealing money from someone, money that belongs to him. So over here, the fact that you pay a chaimish on denying the original chaimish, it shows you that the status of this chaimish is like money that this person owns. And the Tanya Nami, and we learned another case, a person steals from his friend v'nishbaloi, and he swears to him falsely that he didn't owe him the money, umeis, and then he dies. Yarshim, Mishalmin, Keren, v'chaimish. So the Yarshim have to pay the Keren and the chaimish, upeturim in a asham, and they're potter from any carbon asham. But the Keren and the chaimish they have to pay. Okay, so over here you see again. Over here it's also, I think it's also it's also talking about when the Gazlan died. Yeah, and then the Yershim have to pay this Keren and the Chaimish. The Gemara. Okay, so that's what we see over here. So up until here, the Gemara proves that both the Keren and the Chaimish is a payment of money that the Yershim pay. The Gemara, the Yershim b'nei shalumi chumshe davu enavo. Is this true that the Yershim have to pay the Chaimish that the father would have to pay. After the father dies, they have to pay this chaimish. The Gemara brings another brayse where it clearly says not so. I'll ask you from what it says clearly in a brayse. Adai and Aniyayim, the brayse here talks about this case, and the brayse says, I would think to say, when there's a Yerush not pay the chaimish of the father, if not the Yerush himself, or not the father swore falsely about it, or who v'loy aviv, or if the Yerush himself swore falsely about this gzeila, but the father did not, or aviv v'loy hu, the father swore falsely about it, but the Yerush himself did not. In all of these cases, I would say then that the Yerush does not have to pay the chaimish. Hu v'aviv minayin. However, what's in a case where both the father swore falsely about this, and the Yerush also swore falsely about this? I don't have this money. Minayin, how do I know that still after you swear falsely, the Yerush does not pay the chaimish? Talmud Loima, the pasuk says, Asher gozal v'asher oshak. What that means is, only the one that actually stole, he's the one that if he swears falsely, does he have to pay the chaimish. And v'hulay gozal v'lay oshak. But the Yerush does not pay the chaimish, because he's not the one that stole. So the Brayse clearly says that the Yerush does not pay the chaimish. So we have a clear contradiction about this regarding the payment of the chaimish, whether the Yerush pays it or not. Rav Nachman answers like kasha. There's no contradiction here. Kan shahida. When it says that the Yerush pays the chaimish, that's if the father already swore falsely, and afterwards he came and admitted that he swore falsely. So once he admitted, there was an obligation to pay the chaimish. So the Yerush has to pay that in his place. But kan shalei haida. But over here in the Brayse where it says that you don't pay the chaimish, is because the father was never maida to this. You only pay a chaimish if the father was maida, but if he wasn't maida, you don't pay. Okay, so now the whole continuation of the Gemara over here is going to try to explain. So you're saying that the Yerush does not pay a chaimish because the father wasn't maida. But if that's the case, he shouldn't pay the keren as well. If he was never maida to this, and there's no edim here. We're not speaking about a case where there's edim. If there's a case that there's edim over here, then you don't pay any chaimish b'chlal. You only pay if the person himself is being maida. So, but if he wasn't maida, why? How is there a payment of keren? If his Brayse is speaking about a case where it was not maida, and that's why the Yerush does not pay the chaimish, he shouldn't pay the keren either. Okay, so now, as I said, the whole continuation of the Gemara is going to discuss what could be a case where you could divide the chaimish from the keren. That on one hand, the Yerushim don't pay the chaimish, but they still have a responsibility to pay the keren. So the Gemara, if you'll argue to say, well, actually, the pshat in this brayse is that you don't pay not the chaimish and not the keren, because the father wasn't midas, so you don't pay either. That's not true. That can be. If you want to say that this is taka true, you don't pay not the chaimish and not the keren. No, but Bava Kama a chaimish. You see clearly the brayse is bringing a pasuk to say that the Yerush is parted from paying only the chaimish. Lememre the keren mishalem. So that means that the keren, the Yerush does pay. Only the chaimish is potter of. So what is that case where we divide the chaimish from the keren? Another raya is from the continuation of the brayse. The continuation of the brayse says clearly that the keren, the Yerush does pay. As the brayse there says, I would still say, when does the Yerush pay the keren? Al gezel aviv, for this that the father stole, bisman shenishba hu v'aviv, in a case where the father swore falsely about it, and the Yerush himself also swore falsely about it. Or aviv v'leihu, or if the father swore falsely, and even if the Yerush himself didn't, or hu v'leiaviv, the Yerush swore falsely about it, even if the father didn't. Loyu v'leiaviv, if none of them swore falsely about this gzeila here, minayin, how do you know that it's still the responsibility of the Yerush to pay the keren of the gzeila? Talmud Loima, you have there in the pasuk, when it speaks about this halacha, it says gzeila, v'oishik, aveda, opekadon. It mentions all different kinds of l'shainis, all different kinds of cases, to tell me that in all of these cases, the Yerush has to pay. That's what it says in the brayse. So the brayse clearly says that the case over here is that the Yerush does not pay the chaimish, but he does pay the pekadon. Then the brayse finishes off with the words yesh talmud. What does the words yesh talmud mean? So the Gemara here brings two pshatim for this. This is a side point, but the Gemara says, "V'yasav Rav Huna v'ka'amar lahosh shmaite." Rav Huna was saying over this brayse, Amalei Rabbe Berei, Rabbe, his son, asked him about this. Yesh Talmud, what does Yesh Talmud mean? Yesh Talmud ka'amar, it meant to say that Yesh Talmud, meaning you have a drasha from the pasuk, that the child has to pay the gzeila is learned from the extra words of the psukim here. That's what the master said here. Or maybe I misheard you. Maybe you're saying something else. Or yishtalmu ka'amar. Or maybe not yishtalmu. You were saying that they have to pay. It's not a drasha from a pasuk, but you just learn it out misvara that the child has to pay the gzeil of the father. Amalei. So he answered him, Yesh Talmud ka'amina. I meant to say that there's a drasha from the pasuk. Ribuye the kra. It's a ribuy. You're learning it out from the pasuk here. The extra words in the pasuk as the Brisa quoted. Okay, as I said, this is a side point. The main point is the Gemara now is trying to figure out how is it a case where the child pays the keren but does not pay the chaimish. If both the keren and chaimish, as the Gemara before proved, is mamain, it's money that the father owes. So why should we make any distinction between them? Amri, so the Gemara now explains, what did Rav Nachmi before mean to say when he said that he was not moide, elamai loyhoide aviv. The case of here is that the father himself was never maida after he swore falsely about it. The father himself was not maida. But for Haida Benai, what happened was the son then was maida. The son swore falsely about this, and the son was maida. So therefore, the son does not pay for the fact that he was maida. He pays keren because he was maida, so he pays the keren, but he does not pay the chaimish. But the Gemara right away asks, this is not a good explanation why he wouldn't pay the chaimish. Why shouldn't the son pay the chaimish on his he swore falsely? The Brisa clearly spells out that one of the cases is where the son himself swore falsely about this gzeila that he has from his father, and then afterwards he was maida. So now he's a gazlan in his own right. Why shouldn't he have to pay both a keren and a chaimish for this? So the question still remains, what's the distinction here? Why keren he pays and the chaimish he does not pay? So Amri, the Gemara says the answer is b'she'en gzeila kayemes, when the actual gzeila, the item that was stolen, is not here anymore. So if it's not here anymore, so therefore you don't pay the chaimish for this. But if the gzeila is not here, b'she'en gzeila kayemes, afil keren ami loy mishalem. So then you shouldn't pay the keren either. So again, you can't make a distinction between the chaimish and the keren. Answers the Gemara, leitzriche the ikke achrayis. So the Bach here adds, that the father left in properties. And therefore, the properties, that's where you collect the keren from. The chaimish you do not collect from these properties, and that the Gemara is soon going to ask, why not? But the Gemara is saying now that the actual item that was stolen is not here, but there are properties that you can pay up with. So therefore, the keren is collected from these properties. Now the Gemara asks on this, and this whole next kasha and teretz here, according to Rashi, you're not geiris, but other Rishonim are geiris it. The Gemara asks on this, if the father left over properties, why would you collect the keren of this gzeila from these properties? Milval pehi, it's like a loan that's not in a document because this is a gzeila. There's no document about this. And the rule is, milval peh, we don't collect any milva, any loan that's not written in a document, not from Yoshin and not from buyers. So how would you collect over here the keren of this genever from this property? So as I said, Rashi says you're not guided this because there's a Mishnah later in the Masechah that says befedish that gzeila is collected from properties. And that Rashi has other reasons also why he says you can't be guided this piece in the Gemara here. Either way, if you are guided it, the Gemara answers, Omri, the case of here is b'sha'amad bedin. When the father was already alive, there was already a din taita about this. And because there was already a din taita and the bezdin already paskin that the father has to pay, so therefore it's like it's written in a document. Because the Bezdin already paskin about this. And therefore the keren you have to pay from these properties. Okay, now the Gemara comes back to the original discussion here. So if there are properties here, even though the actual gezela is not here anymore, but there's actual properties from the father that you could collect the keren from, ibish amid bedin, and there was already a psak din of the Bezdin, so why don't you pay the chaimish? Again, the question remains, what's this case that you're telling me that the Brisa is saying that the keren, the Yerush pays, but the chaimish does not pay? Why don't you take the chaimish from the properties as well? So one answer Rav Yeshua says is because there's a rule over here as follows: the payment of the chaimish is because of the false shvua, and the payment of the false shvua does not apply to karkais. Since you don't have the actual gzeila itself, the payment is only coming from the karkais that you got from the father. A false shvur regarding karkais, there's no payment of chaimish. That's the halacha, as it's learned out from psukim. Just like there's no din of shvur benegay to karka, there's no payment of a chaimish regarding the karka. But the keren you still have to pay.
But the son lied.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference. Even
paying on what the son's line.
yeah, no, but his son only pays though with the shibud of those karkais though. He's only paying because it's
son line.
and a chanami, but it's still the gzele started off by the father, and now the son has responsibility to pay that father's gzele. Why does he have to pay that father's gzele? The actual gzele is gone. It's not here anymore. So when the gzela is gone, a son does not have responsibility to pay the father's gzela. He's only paying it because there's karkais that are still here from the father. So therefore, you could only collect the gzela from the karkais. When the son lies and swears falsely, his shvua relates to the payment of the karka. A payment that comes from karka, you don't pay a chaimish for that. So therefore, this is the case which the Braisa says that the son only pays the keren and not the chaimish. That's one example. That's one case. Rava says another case. What's the case where the son, the Yiddish, only pays the keren and not the chaimish, even though the son himself swore falsely and he was maida? Kagain shaisa diskiya shel aviv. The gzela itself is here, but this gzela is in a sack that belongs to the father. And where was it? It wasn't in the Yiddish's own possession. It was mufkadas biyad acherim. It was by someone else. Someone else was holding on to it. So therefore, the case of here is when the son swore falsely, he didn't realize he's swearing falsely. He didn't know that it was still here. He said, I don't have it. And he thought it's taken out here. So the keren is going to have to give back because the fact is it's still here. Once it's discovered, he has to give it back. Chaimish loy mishalem, but the chaimish is not going to pay back because the chi ishtaba bekushte ishtaba. When he swore and he said, I don't have it, he thought that he doesn't have it. The whole aviyada, he didn't know that it's here. So this is the case where the Braisa says that he pays the keren and he doesn't pay the chaimish.